Hello everyone, welcome to Cartoon Season. I am Tyler, and this is obviously where we get to talk about some animation every week, sometimes more than once a week. And today we're doing some anime. We got some Fruits Basket, the 2019 version, because I know that there was an original version. I think it was like in 2006, something like that. But yeah, we're doing the newer one. And season one. And yeah, we got a bunch of good stuff to talk about there. I'm going to talk about the curse, the Soma family curse. We're going to talk about the influence of Toru and, her influence on the entire family, and even other people around her as well. And then we're going to get into some season 2 predictions, seeing where this one left off and what that could mean for a next season, or the next season. Because I think right now I think the show ended, right? I think there's 3 seasons, I believe. But yeah, we're going to get into all that stuff. Before we do, make sure to go to the Tiger T YouTube channel or any other podcast service to watch more, listen more episodes. And there's also a Tiger T Twitter as well as my own Twitter if you want to follow on Twitter. But yeah, we're going to get into the first thing here, which is the curse. So yeah, obviously there's the whole thing with the Soma family curse. In the beginning, I don't think we really knew what it was about. They just kind of mentioned it a bunch. But then we realized that it has to do with, them turning into the animals, that effects that has on other people. Because they're very much... This is a show that it doesn't, build the world up to be a world where these things happen. There's another show that I'm watching right now that you'll probably see a cartoon season episode on. It's called Hilda. I guess to date the recording of this episode, I just finished watching season 1 of Hilda, and that show is very, I'll say, it kind of separates itself from other shows because there's kind of like fantasy magical elements, like magic itself, and then also like different creatures and stuff that exist in that world, but they don't hide it. It's not like these creatures are always hidden and, the main character can see them and interact with them, and, no, like they exist. Like everyone knows about certain creatures and, like trolls and, different elves and whatever, so that show, the world is built upon the premise, or the premise that these creatures exist and everyone knows they do. It's not like some like world-ending secret. Whereas with this show, with Fruits Basket, the reason I brought that up is to compare them, is that Fruits Basket, no one knows that there's people out there that can turn into animals, and it's based on like the zodiac stuff. So that's a very much a hidden component. So when that happens, people get freaked out, so that's why, the whole Tohru hugging people like Kyo and Yuki, we try to keep that to a minimum, especially in public, because it's a very hard thing to explain. That's an understatement. But then the curse takes it like 17 levels higher, where you are the parents to a child, and the child comes out, and the mom or the dad gets to hug the child. Or not really hug, more so like, when you're a baby. I wouldn't really call it hugging, more like cradling, I guess. And then the child turns into an animal magically. That can be very traumatizing. So that's basically the curse. Is that who was it? It was Momoji, who was like, yeah, they either the parents usually act one of two ways. They either become overprotective of the child because of this I guess quote unquote condition, whatever regular humans will call it, or they reject the child. And the rejection is mostly what the curse is about. So I got a couple examples here. Really the only 2 examples that I think was in the first season, but they're both very tough. So the first one with Hatori, he had to wipe the memory of his relationship with Kana, who was a regular human woman that he was in a relationship with. Which is usually something they try to avoid because it's a very tough thing. Like any sort of intimacy, the secret's gonna come out. You know what I mean? Like it's not, relationship is not gonna last long with that secret being a secret. So the reason for the curse was because, they wanted to, Kana, soldier. You know what I mean? She actually really loved him to the point where she didn't care. She was like, I still love you. I still want to be in a relationship. This doesn't change things. It was great. It was awesome. It was really the best case scenario for Hatori. But then Akito went into a rage, a literal physical rage, and she basically half blinded Hatori, and immediately blamed Kana. It was like, oh, it's all your fault. It's all your fault this happened, which, full stop, that's crazy. It was not her fault at all. You can't, I guess technically it's her fault that you went into a rage, but that's your own emotions. It's not like Kana pushed him into the mirror and broke. No, you went psychotic because of this relationship, and then you pushed Hatori into this mirror, which broke in both eyes. So it's like one led to the other, but Kana is not directly, that's not her fault. But Kana still put all the blame on herself, and grew very, very mentally ill, to the point where, Hatori eventually decided to wipe her memory because she couldn't get over it. She couldn't get over, how much she blamed herself for this, to the point that, she went crazy. Again, mentally ill is really the best way that I can describe it, because that's what happened. And it was to the point where she maybe would have hurt herself, maybe even more than hurt herself. So Hatori couldn't stand to see that. He couldn't stand to see what the relationship was becoming, what she was becoming because of, this whole situation. He probably partially blamed himself for, letting himself love a regular human, So yeah, he eventually wiped the memory, and it was great after that. She was able to move on because she had no memories of this relationship. She was able to just live her life like any other person. But that's the first example I got for it. And the whole curse is again, it wasn't necessarily that Kana rejected, but it's the whole, it's more encompassing than that. It's more like any of the zodiac that fall in love with someone else, this could also happen to them. This could also turn the corner into, the whole rejection or acceptance thing. Now, this example is a little bit rougher because this brings out more of Akito, and you really see what Akito is trying to do, and how they feel about the family, them being the head of the family. To me, it's how controlling they are. We do see that a little later with Yuki, which I'll talk about, but it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate that it's you can't move out this family. This family is your family, no one else. You can't really have friends or, obviously any sort of thing romantically. And a lot of that might have to do with the actual zodiac stuff, but I think a lot of it has to do with Akito as well. But again, that's just one example. The other example is a little more straightforward to what I kind of described in the beginning, which was Momiji, doesn't matter, was immediately rejected by his mother when he was born, because he turned into a rabbit when his mother caressed him for the first time, as mothers do when they give birth. And that was really tough, to where she also, became somewhat, some sort of mentally ill, to the point where she stabbed herself because of how just everything in her mind was collapsing around her. Like ever since Momiji was born, it was just this weight, this darkness, and that's how she felt. Obviously the dad, the dad was much more understanding. The dad, tried to do what he could, but it just didn't help, and so the dad eventually suggested that we have her memories wiped. Very tough decision. And now Momiji watches them from afar. He watches the mom, the dad, his little sister, I believe. Kind of watching over them and loving them in the only way that he can, which is extra tough because the mom, she's fine. She doesn't remember, but I believe that the dad still has memories. The little sister was born after, so little sister doesn't know anything. But the dad still knows. So that's a whole other aspect to it that wasn't really shown too much in the show to me, where it's like, that you have a child out there, that's got to be awful, and then this is also why, Momiji goes on this whole long thing about embracing every memory, not wanting to forget the bad stuff, because of the whole mom thing, and, the mom, wanted to forget him, and so that's why Momoji's like, I'm going to live every moment. I'm not going to forget stuff. I'm not going to let stuff go, because even the bad stuff is important, Very nice. Very, very mature for his age. Again, I mean, they're only in middle school, I believe? No, early high school, right? Yeah. Because that was the whole thing where, she was like, oh, I think Momoji might be in middle school at best, but he's actually in high school. But yeah, I mean, again, those are two examples that I have. I think those are really the only two examples, but I think they both show the curse that just infects everything. Any sort of relationship, whether it be one that you choose or one that you don't. I mean, I guess when you give birth, you do choose, but, any sort of relationship like that. And then it doesn't only happen to one side, it happens to everyone involved. You know what I mean? Hatori now has to live knowing that, that is the woman that he loved, and now he can't see her. You know what I mean? And then the same thing other way around, where it's I guess, Kana's mind was wiped, but it's if that was if you believe in a, true love or whatever, that sucks that she can never have him, and vice versa, and it goes the same way with Momiji, where it's it hurts Momiji because that is his actual family. That's his birth family. And he can't interact with them. He can see them. He sees them all the time, but he can't love them. I mean, he still does, but he can't do it in the way that a child should love their parents and their sibling. And then, again, the dad, the dad has to live life knowing that this is the situation, and then even the mom, again, the mom rejected. So, I think we're kind of, at least initially forced as the viewer to hate the mom, to be oh, why would you, you put yourself in the mom's shoes, and you're probably I would accept any child, even if they turn into a rabbit. I don't care. But it is still tough because even so, she still has a child. She has a child that she gave birth to that's living in the world that she does not know of. That's tough, even though in every character I've mentioned so far that's affected by the curse, I feel I'm sympathetic towards her the least. I still feel that's tough. That's a tough situation to be in, even though technically in her mind, she doesn't know. Her mind was literally wiped. But, again, so that's kind of the overview of the curse. And, I think this is a very important aspect to the show. I think so far it's been mostly used to describe or not describe, but showcase and be the link between all the Zodiac members for their internal darkness. I think that was mentioned a number of times during the show. The one I'm thinking of right now is Saki. How she was oh no, was it Saki? Yeah. Saki, how she was they well, I mean, she doesn't know they're Zodiac, but people like Kyo and Yuki have a very deep darkness in them, and I think the curse is definitely the source of that. And we'll get into it a little bit more with predictions, but I think this whole curse thing, stuff is only gonna get more prevalent as the show goes on, because so far it's been like relationships and stuff, but I think Tohru, because even at the end of this season, they were talking about like maybe the curse is gonna be broken. Maybe we won't have to deal with this anymore. Tohru, main character. This is an anime. She could be the key. It all kind of makes sense. But then we can move on to my other topic, which was the influence of Tohru. So I just have a bunch of examples for you that I want to discuss. Of just things that Tohru has done, whether she's done them deliberately or not, because, we know how kind of airheaded she can be. But how she has made everyone's life around her better and clearer. Sorry. But yeah, so a bunch of examples. I mean, yeah, because like you have one of the first ones, which is on the roof. Kyo tells Tohru about his love for martial arts. And I think that's one of the first like really sweet moments, because up to that point we just see Kyo as like, he's the rowdy one, he's the aggressive one. He doesn't really let anyone in. And just Tohru being how she is innocent and actually caring, lets him rant about something that he actually loves. Because up until that point, again, we've seen him just fight Yuki and just be, just kind of distant, has that hard shell, but this is really the first time that we see him excited and like passionate about something, and that right there is just like, okay, we've seen Tohru now break through that shell and, get Kyo thinking about some things. And then a little bit later on, again with Kyo, but now also Yuki, they both go after Tohru when she moves back with her grandfather. That just shows the effect that she's had on them, where she left and they couldn't deal with that. A little selfish, obviously, but I mean, in the end, I guess it was fine because they were right. She wanted to go back with them anyway, but again, like, they're just a random girl that they were able to, take under their wing, or not really their wing, but just like, put their roof over her head for a little bit, and just in that very short amount of time, because I don't think it was very long, I think it was like weeks, maybe, like if that, and just the effect that she had on them, like the joy that she brought to their lives. They just couldn't stand it, so they immediately used the note and found her and, wanted to take her back. Again, it all worked out because she wanted to go there anyway. And her extended family, I guess you'd call them, terrible people. Awful. Her grandfather's great, everyone else is awful. Then something else, Saki tells Yuki, Kyo, and Shigure that Tohru will be alone on New Year's. So that right there is kind of twofold, where you see the effect that she's had on Saki, and we'll get into that a little bit later because we'll actually see her backstory and stuff. But for her to go out of her way to like find them and see that Tohru's not with them, which means that Tohru must be alone, and to go to them and like incept in their mind that they can't leave her alone. They can't make it so she's alone. And like Mother's Day is a big thing because, or not Mother's Day, New Year's is a big thing because this is the first New Year's that she will be without her mom. And then they start thinking back to like all the moments of the past couple days of her like discussing New Year's, and we realize that she really didn't want to be alone. And then it's the second fold of that, which is them being like, yup, we're going back. And now Shigure has to go there all by himself. But again, for them to, they didn't really want to go anyway to the whole New Year's thing because they don't really, that's not really their jam. I think they've skipped them in the past before anyway, but, even with that, like Tohru was the one that convinced both of them to go, so even that, like she convinced them to go, and then she was also the reason why they didn't go. And then we got Tohru using the power of badminton to make Yuki feel better after Akito's surprise appearance at school. I mean, again, right there, we know how Yuki feels around Akito. We know how literally traumatized he was because of Akito. And usually, I mean, we saw a couple other Zodiac members even pretty much say this, where, they were surprised seeing Yuki, later in the day, how he doesn't look down. He looks fine. He looks like he always does. And so we know that, obviously, in the past when Yuki and Akito have spoken, Yuki is probably out for like maybe days. His attitude is his emotions. He's probably just sulking and just like, keeps to himself. Probably, stays in his room for a few days because of the effect that Akito has on him. From basically bringing everything up and having this control over him. And again, this literal like PTSD. And then for Tohru to just hang out and try to plan something to take his mind off of it with friends. And then we see him like enjoying himself and laughing. And it's like, oh wow, I'm surprised Yuki looks fine. So I mean, again, that right there, Tohru, just another example of Tohru not only bringing joy, but also easing everyone's minds around her. And then we got Tohru seems to push Hatsuharu to go forward with bonding with Yuki. I mean, we have a nice little moment there where we learn a little bit about Hatsuharu's relationship with Yuki, because they're brothers, and, the whole Akito thing, that complicates things, but it does seem like he wants to try. Yuki doesn't really, and which makes sense because, Yuki, from his perspective, Hatsuharu kind of abandoned him and wasn't really there for him when he needed him. But through this, kind of backstory and, again, of course, how Tohru is. Tohru is always very encouraging and wants everyone to be nice to each other and love each other. It does seem like that she kind of gives him the extra push to finally do that and make some stronger attempts at bonding with Yuki. We got something else. With the help of Kyoko, Tohru causes Arisa to leave the gang life. This is great. This is we get the backstory, a couple different episodes, backstory with Arisa, something that in the moment didn't really know I needed, but I'm glad that this exists. Because didn't know that I needed to know more about Arisa, but I'm glad I do. And again, this is a lot of the help is with Kyoko, but with Tohru not giving up on Arisa and not, seeing her as some thug, like just seeing her as like a person, a potential friend. I mean, even in the moment where they met up again, when Arisa was running away from her group and she ran into Tohru and like Tohru dropped like some groceries or whatever, and Tohru immediately just grabbed her hand and ran and like brought her home. You know what I mean? Like there was no explanation needed. There was no like, because before that, Arisa was kind of rude, I guess, to her and Kyoko, right? But she didn't care. She was like, I got you, and so even that little bit of like believing in her and like wanting to be friends, no matter, again, like another character, it's different, but another character with a very hard shell, that Tohru just doesn't care. Tohru can see through that instantly with anyone. And then it eventually caused them to not only be best friends, but like have her leave that life, have her see how to help her father, because again, before that, father was like a nobody. Like, I don't even know how he got money. I don't know how they afforded to live in a house, because it just seemed like he didn't do anything. He just stayed inside all day and like got drunk basically. But now after that, we have some cute moments, especially around New Year's, right, where we cut to Arisa's house and everything's nice and clean and tidy, and dad is there looking joyful, and he's trying to sneak drinks, and Arisa's yelling at him that you're only allowed one, and the dad's like, I think I must have lost count. And Arisa's like, yeah I but again Tohru was the main catalyst for the change in her life, and it was for the better. It wasn't even it wasn't like she was meddling, she saw a potential friend, and saw the good in her. And then we got Kisa. There's another Zodiac. She's being bullied, and due to Tohru sharing her own bullying experience with her, she started bonding. She actually started to bond with someone, and at least be safe, and then eventually actually start speaking, because she was like mute for forever, because of the whole situation. So even something like that, again, Tohru doesn't only stumble into things like this, because a lot of it could just be her blissfulness, right? That kind of just rubs off on people. But I think there's also times like this one where she legitimately shared a story, like her own life, and compared to Kisa, was like, I know what you're going through, I know it's hard, I understand why you didn't tell your mom. That's a tough thing to explain to someone else. That's a tough thing to even say out loud, but it's okay, like, we're here for you, people care about you, and I'll help you any way you need. And again, I was able to have Kisa bond with her, and then eventually share her story, like share what happened, and talk, and be able to re-enter society, basically. And through that, that kind of rubs off on Yuki in a similar way, where he decides to also move on, and he accepts to be the next class president. Again, another thing where I think Yuki really wanted to do it, but I think there's other factors that caused, basically holding himself back. And through Tora being so encouraging and, giving these words of wisdom that, she always attributes to her mom, but, I think her even like regurgitating them still, she still gives herself some credit. But just another example of her pushing people in a good way to be their best selves. And then we get the other friend's backstory, Saki, who has powers, and she almost killed a kid when she was in school. And so that basically caused her to stay away from everyone, not let anyone get close, because she doesn't want to drag them into her life and put them in potential danger. Obviously on the worst side, doesn't want to kill them on accident, because she can't control her powers. But because of Toru's and Arisa's personality, they just really want to be friends with Saki. They don't care about that past stuff. They didn't know about it for the longest time when they started getting closer to her, and we started to see some good things happen to Saki. But even when they found out, they didn't stop. Like Toru ran after her. Arisa, she ran after her and was like, we don't care. Like, as long as you're trying to change and, we see you as a good person. Like, again, it's just standard stuff, but it meant a lot to Saki, because that was her, like, dark secret, that she knew that if, she literally moved to the school because of that. So she felt like if anyone knew that, she'd have to move again, because she wouldn't want to get close to anyone. And then even if she did get close to people, once they knew, they wouldn't want to be close to her. It's like, oh, I don't, she's a witch. She is a demon. But people like Toru and Arisa didn't care. And, this had the other effect of, Saki actually allowing people to love her and be close to her. Because again, up until that point, she didn't even, she wanted her family to move away from her. She didn't even want her actual parents, great parents, but she didn't even want them to be close, because she didn't feel they could do anything to help her. And the last thing I got is that Toru embraces Kyo's true form, which he didn't have to. His true form is repulsive, both visually, doesn't smell great, I guess, and that was like a whole episode, right, where the true form, he's embarrassed by it. He's not embarrassed, he's like ashamed because of it. It's like his darkest secret. And I think Tohru was the last person that he wanted to see it, because he felt like anyone would be repulsed by it and never want to see him again, never want to be close to him, not doesn't want to know him. And his relationship with Tohru, he didn't want to ruin that. But even Tohru, like I said, just how she is, it's just her mindset to be nice to everyone and accept everyone for who they are. Like she embraced him, both literally and figuratively. And, it like reminded him of his mom. And, again, accepting him for who he is, not what he looks like, or not because of some secrets that he wants to keep. Like it doesn't matter to her. She knows who he is, and that the quote unquote true form is not who he truly is. But it took Tohru for him to realize that and actually move on from it. But yeah, that's just there's tons of other examples, but that's I feel like that's quite enough of just examples of the influence that Tohru has on literally everyone around her. Everyone around her is better off for knowing her. It works both ways though. I think Tohru is also a better person for knowing all of the somas as well. But just every single person she's able to relate to. She's able to help break out of their shell. She's able to, have them get over their dark secrets. Able to just bring overall joy to everyone's lives. And sometimes, it can feel like her wanting, her caring, and her just like persistence, can kind of be a little annoying and kind of, be like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do that. It's not, I don't need your help, that kind of thing, especially when it's regarding things that you're insecure about. But I think once it actually happens, all of these characters, they appreciate her for pushing them into doing something that's out of their comfort zone, but it's something that they have to do. And Tohru was the one that realized that and was able to make them realize it as well. But then finally we can get into some season 2 predictions. Let's see. So I got a few here. Let's run through them. I got that I feel like Akito might become more aggressive due to seeing how well Tohru meshes with everyone. So what I mean by that is that as of right now, from what we've seen anyway, we've seen, Akito confront Tohru, right? And we've seen the aftermath. We've seen that she feels like Tohru is inconsequential, right? She's nobody. She called her ugly. But yeah, she's basically not worried about Tohru at all, meddling into anything. She's like, who cares? She again, inconsequential to whatever Akito, her methodology or whatever. Doesn't matter. But I feel like Tohru, we just had a whole segment about the influence of Tohru. I feel like everything Tohru has done and just what Tohru is going to continue to do, because that's who Tohru is, I feel like at some point Akito is going to get involved, because she is not going to like what Tohru is doing. Because again, we go back to the other segment where we talked about the curse. Akito did not like that Hadari was in a relationship with Kana. So it's like, you can look at that multiple ways. You can look at that like, oh, again, like, Tohru isn't in a relationship with anyone. Like, they are kind of, the show is kind of setting up, maybe she gets in a relationship with, honestly, it could be Yuki, could be Kyo, we're not, again, I'm not quite sure if they're going to set up some sort of romantic stuff between Tohru and any of these characters. Again, most likely either Kyo or Yuki. It could just be like a platonic love or like friend love, that kind of thing. again, I don't have a prediction about that. I don't know if that's the route that they want to take. But like, again, it's not even that. It's just like Tohru being an outsider, getting so close to the family, and they're not only so close, but like changing the way they think about certain things, for the better. But better for them doesn't necessarily mean better for Akito. So I think that at some point Akito is, someone is going to act out in a way that Akito does not like, and it was due to Tohru. Again, I imagine it's probably going to be one of the closer ones, like Kyo or Yuki. I mean, Kyo to me probably won't have too much of an effect on Akito because Kyo isn't part of the like main Zodiac family or whatever. Because there's only like 12 of those, I guess. Right, because there's 12 months, duh. But I mean, like, I could definitely see it being Yuki, Shigure. I don't think so because of how close he is consistently to Akito. I don't feel like he'll do anything like that. But I don't know. I feel like Yuki is a prime candidate for something like that. Or even Tohru standing up to Akito herself. In like whatever situation that might be due to. That could also happen. Let's see. I think it's possible we'll see other true forms. I just don't know how the whole true form thing works. Like, does only Kyo have a true form? Or does everyone? Or does, maybe everyone that's outside of the main 12 Zodiac have like a true form because they hold some sort of beef or resentment? Whether it's, conscious or not conscious, but, whether it's intentional or not. Maybe they all have a true form. Tohru can help out with it. Or maybe that was purely a Kyo thing. But I think it'd be interesting. And I think it could make sense for us to see other people with true forms and us kind of, work through that. Then also had a question. Are all the members of the Zodiac alive right now? And the only reason I asked that is because, like, I was thinking maybe we could see another, another moment of the curse where someone gets rejected. Someone isn't alive, someone get rebirthed, I guess. I don't know. And there's also other people outside of that, again, like the main Zodiac. But yeah, I think all of that was kind of to say, like, to kind of be the bridge to, I guess, the root of the prediction, which is, I think we could see another moment of the curse happen in real time. Again, if everyone's alive, then the whole birth thing won't come into play. Maybe some sort of romantic stuff, something like that, where we see the curse in action. For season 2, because we've talked about it a bunch in season 1, but we haven't actually seen it happen. Like, there hasn't been an instance in which the curse is in its full effect. So possible. And then I kind of already mentioned it, but I think it's possible Yuki may stand up to Akito this season. Part of me feels like that might be like a final season moment, but I think him even doing that could set off a lot of stuff with the family, and more of like the mysteries and the the whole thing with Akito. So I think we could see that this season, but we'll see. We know after everything in the first season, what Tohru has been doing with Yuki, and making him more confident, and so. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I have for predictions, and that is also everything I have for this episode. Really enjoyed Fruits Basket Season 1. Thought it was incredible. It's a show that I think a lot of people have talked about, have rated super highly, and I've always like seen stuff of and been like, is this show really good? Is this actually a good show? Or is it just like, is this maybe just nostalgia because there was, again, a previous anime from, like 05 or 06 or something like that. But no, the show is really good, like really, really good. So very excited to see season 2. But yeah, please let me know what you thought of season 1. Any of your predictions, maybe if you got some of your own. And yeah, that's it. Please, like I said, go to the Tiger T YouTube channel or other podcast services for more episodes. Again, there's Tiger T Twitter and my own Twitter. You can interact, and that's another place you can throw out some recommendations. let's see, whatever else. We got another podcast, Untitled and Unfocused. Do a podcast with my friend Ray. Not a consistent upload schedule, but episodes are a lot of fun, so please go check that out. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Until next time, please watch Season 2 of Fruits Basket, because you know I will be doing that as well. And also let me know of any other recommendations, any other anime or cartoons or movies, anything like that you want me to watch and discuss on here.